Internet, welcome to the Collective Arcana, a channel all about tabletop gaming. And today we are going to do a video from the requested video queue from in the comments. Somebody wanted to see an example of the action economy so they could show players maybe coming from 5e or Pathfinder 1e even, just kind of show you what it looks like. So we're going to do a quick,
hopefully,
maybe, video on that. Before we get started, I know what you think I'm going to say. Okay, I'll say it. You should subscribe if you haven't already. Anyway, what I was going to say is, so we're going to start a Twitch channel.
Yes.
You look surprised, like you didn't know. We're aiming for in about 2 weeks. So keep your eye out for that. I think we're going to play some video games and talk Pathfinder. Hopefully get some people over in the live chat and be able to actually hang out and talk with you guys a little bit. And we'll just mess around video games, whatever. But so watch for that. Follow us on. I mostly use Twitter for stuff like this. So, but I also post on Facebook. So yeah, check us out there. So let's get started. Let's kind of go over how we're going to do this.
So what we're going to do is we are going to run a couple of rounds of combat. Might be enough to finish the combat. I don't know. We'll see. For a party of first level adventurers, we're going to have a moderate encounter. That's going to consist of 3 goblins, 2 goblin warriors, and 1 goblin pyro, because that's fun. And they're going to be facing the iconic heroes, the pre-builts from the Pathfinder beginner box. Yeah, they're right here, everything you need to know. We're choosing these just for simplicity, because they are also easy to access, and because most people who are new to the game, good chance this is what they're playing with.
Yeah, and also we have a pretty decent range of the types of different player types so that we can go over the different action types. There's obviously more action types. I'm going to go ahead and throw in, if you have Path Builder, I'm going to put something up on the screen here so that you can kind of see, but you, you can actually see all the action types you can take if you want to get really creative with it. Obviously, you can do the more standard, just the move, stab, whatever. But there's a ton of options if you want to get creative with it.
And what's really cool about that is that as you add features, decisions to your character, the different actions you can take will be populated there. So if you get a cool action from a skill feat, or from your class leveling up, or wherever it's from, it will be there for you.
Yeah, the list I'm going to show you is just my character, level 17.
There's
what,
a lot.
Sorcerer, what options I have. And I actually looked through and saw some I didn't know I had, which is really helpful because I have a game tonight. Okay, so you ready to hop into this elaborate example?
Yes, so we'll go ahead and we will jump right in. So here we have a sample encounter set up. Now we're not going to roll initiative. We're not going to do attack rolls or checks or anything like that. We're just going to talk about what options everybody has as part of their turn on initiative, ways that they might use their 3 actions, just to show you how the 3 action economy can work.
Okay, so in this action economy, everything is separated by 1, 2, and 3 actions and reactions. They're really easy to tell apart by the little symbol, so get familiar with this symbol. It looks like this. Especially if you are a spellcaster, it's a big deal because there are plenty of spells that are 1 action. Okay, first up with our rogue, I think I'm going to do her move as simple as possible just to give you the very basics. 1 move is 1 action, 1 attack is 1 action. You can use any combination of that. You have 3 total actions. So just keeping it simple with our rogue here, I would move and maybe attack twice. Once you get a little more comfortable, you can start playing around with some of the more creative actions, using the environment around you, maybe use sneak and hide and jump. And then of course if your character has fly speed, swim speeds, that all applies here as well. For our wizard here, I want to keep him out of the way, keep him sort of back. So I'm going to use a 3 action magic missile, which will let me do 1d4 plus 1 per missile. So I'll roll 3d4 plus 3.
And what's great about magic missile is you can choose multiple targets if you'd like to.
Yeah, so each one of them could get 1 hit.
So the beginner box version of Ezra does not have the shield cantrip prepared. I always recommend, if you have access to the shield cantrip, that you get it and have it equipped. In the first place, most spellcasters could use that help with AC and survival if they use it to actually block an attack. In the second place, it's a really solid option for your third action if you just, like in this case, you just don't really need to go anywhere. You could cast a 2-action spell and then also raise your defense a little bit for the next barrage of enemy attacks that may be coming at you. One thing to note in Pathfinder Second Edition, because you do have single action and 2-action spells, if you happen to be equipped with a bunch of single action spells, you could cast 3 spells per round. You could definitely also cast a 2-action spell and then that shield cantrip as we discussed. The only thing to watch out for is if you take multiple spells that have the attack trait. If you use those, you do take a multiple attack penalty. And because most spellcasters don't have the highest attack rolls, even for their spells, you probably want to avoid doing that too often.
I, for one, as a sorcerer, am a big fan of spell and then stab, or spell and then crossbow or something.
Mm-hmm. Which is especially good because a lot of higher level spells don't have the attack trait because they're attacking saving throws and things like that.
Yeah.
Which is something that Ezran has access to right now. So you can do that even at low levels.
I wouldn't do it at first, and then I started to do it, and then I started to crit with the silly little bow or whatever that I never thought I would use, and now it's like my go-to, and I have really good luck with that.
Yeah, you've done very well with it. Critted a couple times in a very recent fight.
Yeah.
So next we are going to have our Goblin Pyro, who would most likely attack the nearest threat right here. Again, we're not going to actually play anything out, but we'll just assume that Mariziel is in trouble. That may become important. So this round we will have our Cleric actually go ahead and heal Mariziel. She could move forward and become adjacent to Mariziel and use a single action heal. But in the case of the heal spell, which has multiple actions that it can take, she's going to use the the 2-action version of heal, because that gives some range and it gives a nice little bit of bonus. If she used the single action, of course, she saves on action economy, but will heal a little bit less and has to be closer. And the third version of heal, the third 3-action, she could heal a group of people, but right now only Mariziel has taken damage, and she wants to make sure that she puts Mariziel back to full. So she's going to use the 2-action heal and raise her shield. That way she is protected if she is attacked.
Again, this is all listed in your spell, so when you look at your spell, it'll tell you those options. I will say, when I first came to 2E, I was very confused about that heal, but once you get the hang of it, I almost always use the 2-action on that. But there have been emergencies where I've had to use the 1-action.
Right, and that's sort of what it's for. I like the multi-action spells because there's usually scenarios where each of the 3 versions are viable, are the best option. But in most situations, it's okay that the 2-action version, which is how many actions most spells cost to cast, is the best one for most situations. But it still leaves the single action and the 3-action for scenarios where those are the best choices.
And the cool thing about this edition is that you can make this as complicated or as simple as you want. If you are feeling a little overwhelmed and intimidated, stick to the 2-action spells and the 1 move, or a 2-action spell and then 1 attack or something like that. And then when you're more comfortable, you can start exploring those other action options.
So we'll assume that for the purposes of this, we're going to move this. So this goblin might come here and try to finish off Mariziel. But we're going to assume that it's going to go after that cleric, which is a definite possibility. And swing away at Kyra. She does have her shield raised, so she has the option to shield block, and that would allow her to reduce damage if she were to be hit, and just having her shield raises her AC. I'm not expecting this to be a deadly fight, so we won't go into tracking anybody's HP or success or failure. Instead, we're going to move right on to Valeros. Now, Valeros as a fighter has a whole lot of options here. Valeros could stay right where he is and probably finish this goblin off. We've established that there's a good chance this goblin got hit by a magic missile earlier. He could also come over here and then attempt to shove this goblin off the side of the ship with a shove action.
Ooh, we've used that in our game a few times.
Yep, could be a lot of fun and completely negate that goblin. Again, we do know that these goblins are hurt, so there's a good chance that just an attack roll would be all that it takes. He also has a couple of interesting options here, because he could trip this goblin, and which would put it in a situation where it might want to get up and provoke an attack of opportunity. He could come up and begin taking out this caster, putting the caster in a situation where if it wants to cast a spell, it could provoke an attack of opportunity next round. But given his very high attack and the fact that his role is to protect his team, we would assume that Valeros would take a swing at this goblin, very likely finishing it off. And then we'll have him move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we could get there. So that he would be flanking with Mauriciel, and then be able to take his third action to attack. And even if he misses, he's now set Mauriciel up next round to get sneak attack because the target is being flanked. So now we have here this goblin, and this goblin may decide to step away, get out of this bad situation. That's going to provoke an attack of opportunity from Valeros here. It may instead decide to stay and swing away. And that brings up a very interesting thing about Pathfinder Second Edition. This goblin really doesn't have a lot of good options besides stepping, which is the only way that it can move without getting hurt. So it could take a 5-foot step, but it would then have to take another 5-foot step to actually break free. Then it could use its third action now outside of Valeros's range to potentially get away. It could do this diagonal move perhaps as well, but either way it's got to eat actions to safely get out of this very bad situation. So that's how you can game the action economy in your favor against the monsters that you're fighting. Put them in a situation where their options are less attractive. The other thing that's unattractive about this situation is it's unlikely to land multiple hits. Maybe it was your GM was counting on being able to get into a flanking position, then changed its mind to take care of the healer because that's what the monsters would do, whatever. It has left this goblin in a very bad situation where if it rolls to attack once, it probably will hit. If it rolls to attack a second time, there's a chance it will hit. If it uses its third action, it's almost certain to miss, and that's going to be the case for your player characters as well. So you want to find a viable use for that third action, whether it's a skill check. There are a lot of really good ones. You could be rolling Demoralize, for example. You could be rolling knowledge checks to see if you can get some information about your enemy. You could also be doing things like distracting or aiding. Any number of things that are probably going to be better than taking a third attack, or sometimes even a second attack. So this goblin's in a tight spot and is probably not going to last past Mauriciel's next turn. It's either going to take an attack of opportunity for moving, or it's going to waste most of its actions and not really have anywhere to go besides maybe staying and attacking Mauriciel, and it's just not looking very good for these goblins. So, we could keep going here. I think that it's pretty clear this fight's probably not going to go well for these goblins at this point. But the other thing is, I hope that we've made it pretty clear the types of actions that you can take as a player character, and the ways to use that action economy to your advantage. Whether it's Valeros using some combat maneuvers to put enemies off balance, Mauriciel getting into position, possibly even sneaking if we had a little more terrain to work with here, or if we had a high enough threat that she didn't want to engage directly. The spellcasters making good use of their multiple actions with their spells. There's a lot of tools there. Things like trip and shove may not seem as good as a direct attack, but in the case of Valeros, if he trips an enemy and they provoke an attack of opportunity by getting up, he does not suffer his multiple attack penalty on that follow-up attack. Yes, only fighters start with attack of opportunity, but a lot of classes can get it or similar things. So definitely worth considering. But again, even if he wasn't getting that attack of opportunity, he's still eating up the action economy of the enemy.
I will say too, if you're a spellcaster, obviously that's what I've played the most. When you take your feats and stuff, just keep an eye out for those one action little things. If you can get quickened casting, I use that a lot. it's a really big deal, especially when you start getting into like those fights where you don't know if you're going to make it. Like, I remember one time using Disintegrate twice because I was like, oh God, we're going to die. It's really good to have in your back pocket.
And the other thing is, watch out for those skill feats as well. They will often give you a single action that you can take. And there are a lot of single actions built in that just need to be trained or not even trained with to be able to use them. But there's some really interesting things. If you or somebody in your party likes to rely on will saves, picking up Bon Mot is a nice single action you can use to help your stealthy characters and your characters that are going to try to force will saves on enemies. The same with Demoralize. A good Demoralize can drastically turn the tide of battle because that's a penalty on everything that enemy is going to do. And then again, I mentioned, Recall Knowledge. Those checks can give you information like a weakness or a resistance, or even tell you
that's one we've been trying to use more in our game because we kind of didn't know about it. And then, if you have a free, like you might be in a situation where you can't really move, you don't really have a good attack option based on the scenario. Use that recall knowledge to see what you can get to help the party out. That's not a small thing with how weaknesses and stuff like that work. So that's we really should be using that for it.
I mean, it's massive. If you find out a weakness that's something that multiple members of your party can exploit, that monster's not going to last very long.
Your alchemist can mess something up.
Yes, an alchemist, just the sheer access of not just damage, but ticking damage that an alchemist can do. If an alchemist lands a good bomb, that monster is got a very short shelf life. And then, but for spellcasters as well, a lot of people criticize Pathfinder Second Edition because the spellcasters don't really have high enough attacks or save DCs and things like that, and you feel like you fail a lot. But knowing the difference between a target's highest saving throw and its lowest saving throw is a very big deal. For a lot of monsters, you're looking at a +6, -6 type of a thing, a 6-point range in difference, or a 30% chance to succeed or fail, or by that extension, critically succeed or critically fail. So knowing the worst save or knowing the weakness on a monster is massive, especially as you begin to gain more levels and get access to more ways to deal damage and more ways to exploit those weaknesses. One other thing cannot be overstated is flanking. If you have the chance to get into a flanking position with an ally, that's big. You're not only going to give both yourself and your ally an edge, you might also trigger like the rogue sneak attack and other effects, and you're going to put that enemy in a position where whatever it was planning to do, it may now decide to change what it was going to do to get out of that hairy situation, eating up action economy that it may not have wanted to spend. So that's it. Thanks so much for watching. If there's something that we didn't cover, this was a low-level thing, so a lot of the possibilities did not present themselves as is normal, but that's a good thing because it means that you're going to start with fewer tools and have the chance to, as Sarah said, either gain new actions as you level up, or if you feel comfortable with fewer actions, you can certainly take feats and abilities that aren't giving you new actions, but just improving what you can already do. So you can have full control over how complicated your character gets. So thanks so much for watching. Welcome to the Collective, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.